to pay, in the sense the rate can be brought down, where we can bring it down, particularly for the middle class and the lower middle class. We have brought the income tax down. So if you go by the way in which we organized the corporate rate tax cut, in September, when the corporate tax was reduced, even there the pattern was similarly adopted. Those who want those exemptions and other things can continue with the old. And those who are looking for a simplified rate, a reduced rate, and a simple process could adopt the new. The same principle is in our minds when we designed this. Eventually, we want to bring the rates down and remove the complications that are there in the compliance. Too many exemptions, it's very difficult for the administrators to administer it. As much as too many exemptions, you need an expert to keep advising you as to how you plan your taxation. So we wanted to achieve two goals: make our intentions clear that we want to simplify the income tax process. We want to reduce the rates. So to achieve both, we have come up this year with a new scheme with very limited exemptions to it. Ideally, a new scheme without any exemptions would have been the best, but still, because there are some exemptions which are absolutely indispensable, and therefore we have brought in those exemptions to it and kept it at the minimum. Those who still want to have the benefit of those exemptions which they have been using for some years can remain in the old system. So we provided both with an intention that in the long run, we will be gradually able to remove all exemptions, and in India, your personal income tax, the entire framework should be simple and a very low rate without difficulties in compliance. With that said, I have also read out the examples of people who don't want any exemption in the old, don't want any exemption in the new. What will be the benefit? I have also given you in my speech example of, all right, some benefits in old and some benefits in new. What do you tend to benefit? The new scheme has been designed in such a way that you definitely benefit in terms of the money which is going to be remaining in your hand, having not to pay a higher income tax. With that said, I'll ask the Revenue Secretary to tell you which are those exemptions which are part of the new scheme now. With the reduced rate and with those few exemptions, what will be the benefit that anyone can get will be obvious from his answer. Revenue Secretary.
We took a very comprehensive review of all exemptions, and what we found that there are close to 120 exemptions, all different kinds of exemptions. For example, the amount received by a member of a Hindu united family from the income of family state, share of a Hindu undivided family from an income of family state, share of profit received by a partner, interest on certain notified securities, interest on masala bonds, income of foreign diplomats, income of employee, consultant and family members under technical assistance program, death cum retirement gratuity. So this way there was a huge list. And so we took a review of each item, and then we found that in this new regime, as has been explained by the Finance Minister, that the whole idea was to offer a simplified regime and also lower the tax rate, because there were large number of people who, because of cash constraints, the amount of the income that they were having, they were not able to take all benefits. And some people were able to take a larger number of exemptions and deductions. So in order to offer a simplified system and also to help those who are not taking an exemption offer a lower tax rate, this system has been introduced. That now the total number of exemptions which have been removed from the new system is about 70. So in fact, I will give you some example that which one have been removed and which one have been retained. So particularly the important ones which have been retained in the new system would be like The retirement benefits, for example, death cum retirement gratuity for government employee, no limit. For others up to 20 lakh, it was already there, they will be retained. Commutation of pensions will be retained. Then the leave encashment on retirement, that will be retained. Retrenchment compensation will be retained. Amount received on VRS up to 5 lakh, that will be retained. Similarly, the EPFO, the employer contribution up to a certain limit, whatever limit that is there now, that will be retained. Payment received from NPS, National Pension Scheme on closure, partial withdrawal from NPS, they all will be retained. A scholarship granted to meet the cost of education, that will be retained. Then payment of awards instituted in public interest, that will be retained. So similarly, so these are the things which will be retained. Then and then there are 70 exemptions, as I mentioned.
You can probably put it all in the net.
Yes, so I will put it on.
So that will be clearer for you.
Yes.
Okay, we take next question, 13. Ma'am, just you will get the details. Question number.
Timsy, when there's more money in your hand and you, the person who has it, will be better in a position to decide where you want to save instead of me directing it. So I'm allowing you to have more money in your hand and depend on your judgment where you want to place your savings.
मैम दिस इज़ मोनिका फ्रॉम जी बिजनेस. मैम मेरा सवाल है कि आपने कहा कि पार्शियल क्रेडिट गारंटी स्कीम में रिवीजन करने की ज़रूरत है. आपने हाल ही में कुछ रिलैक्सेशंस अनाउंस करे थे, तो अब हम क्या स्पेसिफिक मेजर्स उसमें एक्सपेक्ट कर सकते हैं? और दूसरा ये कि रियल एस्टेट सेक्टर जो वन ऑफ द टॉप एम्प्लॉयमेंट जनरेटर्स है, उसके लिए आपने कुछ भी अनाउंस नहीं करा, बल्कि उन्हें बहुत ज़्यादा एक्सपेक्टेशन थी कि एटलीस्ट एक वन टाइम लोन रिस्ट्रक्चरिंग स्कीम जो है उसकी घोषणा हो जाएगी. तो क्या कारण रहा उसके पीछे?
नहीं, actually for the real estate we had announced some things even earlier. We had announced that stalled projects which need to be completed will be given the last mile funding so that that project can be completed. Home buyers will be getting the project. That is already ongoing. Now, in this also, we have extended the date by 1 year, so that if it's affordable housing, the exemption which the home buyer has is available for them, and the tax holiday for the real estate people, promoters, is also extended by 1 more year. So actually they can now seek the buyer and benefit from it once the transaction gets over. So we've actually given something much more than what was announced even before the budget for the real estate sector.
29. Next question,
That's
29.
already ongoing. Na?
Yeah, thanks. Good afternoon, ma'am. Sapna Das here from CNBC TV 18. You've also created a lot of buzz with your new divestment target of 2110 lakh crore estimated for FY21. Ma'am, you've clearly mentioned that, out of this amount, around 90,000 crores is what you're looking at via sale of stake in public sector banks and financial institutions. Could you please explain that to us? And also IDBI, sir.
So the target which has been specified, FM has already mentioned it during the budget speech. It is essentially to come from the listing of the LIC and also from the IDBI at this stage. Sale of stakes, are you saying? Yes. No, but that will not take. Yeah. And so that listing will decide the valuations. We will work on this.
Next
and
question
it's
from
essentially these two.
53. Yes, 53.
Sir, this is Mukesh Kaushik from Dainik Bhaskar. Ma'am, I want to have clarity on defense budget, how much this time has been allocated and what is the percentage increase, what is the capital budget for this, and what is the amount allocated to Indian Air Force, Army and Navy specifically?
I think all these details will be provided in the documents. So if there is any clarification on that, you can. Otherwise, PIB press release is providing all the details and data about the different heads. We can take next question number from 8.
Ma'am, this is Ruchi Bhatia from ET Now. Congratulations on the budget. I want to ask you about the massive 2.1 lakh crore target that has been set out in the budget for disinvestment proceeds. Many say this is a very stiff target. How will the Department A look to achieve this target? Because we've seen a massive shortfall in this year. So A, on the target, and you've also spoken about a tax charter that the tax department will bring in. What will the tax charter really entail, just to understand that?
I'm glad you asked that question. I was a bit worried that on a measure like a tax charter, and in spite of me mentioning it in 2 different places in my speech, not a person has asked me any question. I'm so glad you asked. That's a very major step. Other than us going around the country to tell tax administrators to ensure that face-to-face engagement with the taxpayers need not necessarily be there, to ensure that they are dealing with them more like wealth creators, and to make sure that they would approach them only to gather information. In spite of all this, you would still hear some comments occasionally about, no, there is a level of harassment and so on. And our commitment to make sure that taxpayers are respected, and we quite honor them for the commitment in nation building that they're showing by being honest taxpayers, had to be given an expression of sorts. And therefore we came up, and I must thank, he's not here, the principal advisor, Sanjeev Sanyal did a lot of work for me on this. He researched and gave me a lot of inputs. If I'm right, there are only 3 countries in this world which have enshrined the rights of a taxpayer in their laws. Canada, USA, and Australia, if I remember correct. So when he, after quite a lot of inputs, came up with the taxpayer rights and a charter as a result, we, as usual in the ministry, discussed it in my morning meeting with the secretaries, and then we worked on it. That is to prove very clearly that the government's intent is not to harass anybody. If there are 1 or 2 black sheep here and there, they are there everywhere, not just among tax administrators. But the intent of the government had to be cleared, and therefore we thought we'll enshrine it in the statute itself, because we believe in it. It's an article of faith for us to respect wealth creators. It's an article of faith for us to make sure that the honest taxpayer is not suspect. And therefore we have made it a point to bring it into the Act itself as a charter, the details of which will come out. So that was one of your questions. What was the other? Tuhin Pandey is here. Only to have one word in his favor before he speaks is, I set the target in July. And I also will have to tell you, didn't you know about it, will be your question next. But I'll also have to tell you, between July and now, January, the immense effort that Atanu, before Tuhin as disinvestment secretary, and now Tuhin, are all undertaking. You will see successful disinvestment happening within the next few months. But your accounts for this year end 31st March. Can I keep speculating? So obviously I agree. Between July and now, a lot of legwork has been completed. And the benefits are going to go into the next financial year. So you may hold me for having set a target which I didn't fulfill, but within 6 months I can stand up and tell you, we have done enough groundwork. Tuhin Pandey can speak now about the rest.
So I think 20th of November, government took decisions of some big ticket disinvestments. One is the BPCL, another is Concord, another is Shipping Corporation of India, and THTC and NIPCO. Some of them we are going to conclude this year, but some of the large ones are going to spill over to the next year, and the revenues, receipts are going to come in the next year. So the transactions are all lined up. As you know, the Air India expression of interest is already out, and very soon BPCL expression of interest it is just about ready. It will be out as well, and so on and so forth. So therefore, we are quite hopeful that we would be achieving the disinvestment target next year. And also for this year, whatever is there. As you know, we are a very successful ETF. Last 2 days, we raised 21,000 crore on the ETF, of which we are retaining 16,500 crore.
40.
Sir, ma'am, this is Karunjit from ET. This is a question for the Revenue Secretary. Sir, there's a provision in the finance bill that Indians who are not paying taxes abroad, that Indians who are not paying taxes abroad will have to pay taxes in India. How will this work? Does this mean people working in Dubai and places like that which have zero taxation will have to pay taxes on their global income in India?
We have made changes in the finance changes. We have proposed changes in the Income Tax Act, where if an Indian citizen, if he stays out of country for more than 182 days, he becomes non-resident. So we have made some changes there. So now, in order to become non-resident, he has to stay out of the country for 240 days. That is one. And secondly, we have also provided that in many cases we have found that some people are resident of no country in the world. They may be staying a certain number of days in different parts of the country. So what we have said is that if any Indian citizen, if he is not a resident of any country in the world, then he will be deemed to be resident in India, and then his worldwide income will be taxed.
Number 12.
Hi ma'am, congratulations. This is Meghna Mittal from Newsrise. I wanted to ask you regarding the fiscal deficit relaxation that we have announced for the current year, 3.8 and 3.5 for the next year. I wanted to understand, will it be possible from 3.8 to directly achieve the 3.5% fiscal deficit target? And secondly, I wanted to understand from the LIC IPO, what would be the likely quantum that we could look at and the time frame?
On the LIC time frame and also the IPO details, I'll have Secretary talk about it. But on the fiscal deficit, July 3.